Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad that you are joining us this afternoon. Welcome to our final session in the ABCs of conflict. So, today we're going to discuss how to communicate more effectively during conflicts. It's important for us to remember that communication, it plays a big role in conflict management. It's been observed that, sometimes poor communication it results in misunderstandings and it can eventually lead to conflicts. So it's important for us to understand that our communication has to be clear and precise to avoid those conflicts. When I think about communication, look, I'm going to be honest and vulnerable right now. That's my area of enrichment. So I know that it requires for me to practice. I even have to do some of my own role playing before I communicate with others about that conflict. So we're going to wrap up this entire series on conflict by reviewing those ideas from our first session about accountability and self-awareness, those conflict basics, those concepts that we talked about in session 2, and how in this series to communicate it effectively. What we're going to talk about in this series today. We're going to talk about, look, there's many personalities that you have to deal with, especially in conflict. And it's important for you to identify what those personality types are and how to communicate effectively with them. And then we're going to share some of those best practices. So let's take a look at some of those methods that will help us address them. So I'm not sure. Can you guys tell me? And I'm talking to our audience here. Have you heard of the DISC personality types? I know, my panelists, we've experienced that test. It's the DISC personalities, and it asks you a series of questions, and based upon your answers, it determines what personality type you are. So we don't have the extensive version for you here. So I'm going to help you guys identify what's your personality type by asking you guys 2 questions. Okay. So these 2 questions will help you determine what your personality type is. The first question is, are you more outgoing or reserved? So if you're more outgoing, then you're probably direct or inspiring. But if you find yourself more reserved, then you're probably cautious or supportive. The second question is, are you more focused on the task or are you more focused on the relationship? If you're more focused on the task, then you probably identify with direct and cautious. But if you're more focused on relationships and maintaining those relationships, then you probably identify with that inspiring or supportive. So those are the 2 questions that you ask yourself, and based upon those answers, it'll help you identify what your personality type is. So now that you've gone ahead and identified that personality type, let's look at how to effectively communicate with each of these types. So the first one that we're going to talk about is our direct personality. And usually we refer to it as the D personality type. And I believe, Christy, aren't you a D?
I saw that face you made when you said D. All right, the D is the direct personality type. And let's notice this now. First of all, chances are you are not all one personality or another. In fact, I'm looking here and a lot of people in here are saying, I'm S, C, and D. I waver between a lot of them, all these different, that's normal. We all have a little bit of different personality types in us. The thing that we try to do is try to figure out which things are better for us when we're communicating with those personality types. So with the D, okay, you probably were in this area if you were thinking you're outspoken, have no problem saying what you think, and you're focused on the task. Let's get it done. That's a D personality type. That's a direct person. And let me tell you about Ds. Ds, well, we like it when you get to the point. We're often the ones who would say, like they used to do in the old shows, just the facts, ma'am, because we want the information and then we want to be done. We want to get to it. We say things, we just tell it like it is, but sometimes we do it in a way that hurts people's feelings. So while we think we're being, just clear, other people are going, ouch. So that's something we need to keep in mind. We don't like you to sell us on ideas. We want the information and we make the decisions for ourselves. We want basically a deadline and what you expect. And then please leave us alone. Do not micromanage us. I think that's probably with all of the personality types, right?
Mhm.
We none of us really enjoy being micromanaged. So that be sure that I know my level of authority. Oh, and another one. Once I've shown that I understand what you're saying, stop talking. This is where a lot of the challenges happen between D's and I's because, that I just enjoys talking and stuff. Okay, some people are agreeing with me on this. Oh, thank you, Shelley. Just the facts. Thank you very much. And ouch. Yes, y'all get this. That's the direct personality type. And that's why they get picked on a lot, is because of that sort of thing. So the things that as a D, we need to be careful about. Ah, we need to pay attention so we don't hurt people's feelings. In other words, when we say something, we need to notice how people are responding. Are they clenching up? Have they stopped making eye contact with us? Have they started getting kind of quiet? Chances are we've hurt them somehow. And we need to back up and change the way we're communicating. Um, we need to work on developing our listening skills because as a D, quite often we are listening to answer. We're already formulating the answer in our minds and we're not hearing the last part of what you said. So we've got to work on that part. And oh, here's a hard one. This is a hard one for some of us D's. We have to let other people be in control sometimes. I know it's not pretty, but it's something that we can work on. We got to be willing to let go. My team has been trying to teach me that, right, Monica? They've been trying to help me learn to let go. Kim, yes, I because it's like, oh no, I can do this. No, you can't do it all. And you got to be able to let go of some of that. You can do it, step away. So all of those are things that we want to keep in mind. We need to be willing to explain our decisions sometimes because working like we're talking to a child does not work. Saying like, because I said so, not so good with adults. So taking the time to explain the reasons for some of our decisions is a great thing that D's can do to work more effectively in conflict. And one last thing that I bring up is D's have a very forceful personality type. So try letting other people bring their ideas first before you start giving yours, because otherwise people will often waver to your whatever your decision was. They will say, oh, okay, whatever. And that's when you stop getting people approaching you and feeling comfortable talking around you. So that's just a couple of things to keep in mind for the D's. Oh, I love the amens. Thank you very much. Okay, yes. The truth hurts. Yes, it's true. Absolutely. And yes, and I know what you mean, Lawanda. Yeah, you want control because you feel like then you can determine the outcome. And the challenge is we D's are focusing on that outcome, that task, and we're forgetting that that keeps us from focusing a little bit on the relationships, the other side. And that's some of the D stuff.
Thank you, Christy. Just a little reminder, you guys, Julie went in the chat and put that free disc version that asks you a series of additional questions for you to
Good.
identify that. So it's in chat and you guys are sharing and I'm loving it. Make sure you put to all panelists and attendees so that we can all see your comments. So here is the cool information. The next personality type is an I, and I identify with an I. And some of the things that I, with an I, is that you got to keep us on task. You have to help us stay organized because uh, if sometimes our mind is going so fast, I feel like eyes were like a crackerjack box. You never know what you're going to get inside. So help me be organized and I have to write it down. If you and I are talking and you're giving me a task, if I don't write it down while we're sitting there, by the time I walk to my office, it's gone. I'm like Dory from Finding Nemo. It's lost. It's lost somewhere. So I have to make sure that I am writing things down. And I make sure that I reiterate it to that person. That way I understand what's expected of me. Something else is when we're sitting down, make sure that you give me the opportunity to talk. If you're the only one that's talking, I'm going to wander. So giving me and eyes like for their voices to be heard. So give me an opportunity for me to go ahead and speak and communicate with me often. I like feedback and I like the occasional great job. I like that validation, that recognition. Um, I'm going to be vulnerable and talk about my areas of enrichment. And it is definitely to recognize when I need to be serious. Laughter is one of my mechanisms, that safety nets. So I have to realize when it's appropriate for me to laugh and when it's not appropriate for me to laugh. I also need to stop talking once my audience understands my point. So you remember how Christy said she needs those points and after that, cut it off? I've been kicked out of her office several times. I can't even count on two hands how many times she's kicked me out. I told you guys about the task list where I have to make sure that I'm writing things down because I don't want to miss out on those details because I'm not a detailed person. And I'm pretty sure you guys are like, she's rambling. So I need to slow down to ensure that others understand. So eyes are a unique bunch, a little crackerjack box, but you gotta love them. So our next personality type that we're gonna talk a little bit about, the supportive. And I believe Nathan, aren't you an S?
That's me.
Ah,
Well, unlike you and Christy, the D's and I's, S's are more reserved. We're very laid back people, but don't get it confused because we actually like to be part of teams. We like to have our understanding of how our role fits in the big picture because we like to know the value of our work. If it's helping someone, just we like to make that connection. Whenever you're giving us our job, please don't be confrontational because we do not like conflict of any kind. We try our best to avoid it, or we'll distance ourselves from it. Another thing is, please take time to explain changes and why they're being made. We can get so caught up in our own little routine that the first slightest change we can run, it will scare us as S's. When I get withdrawn, help me communicate the problem. We're not the best at communicating at times because we try to stay from conflict. Sometimes speaking up leads to that. So if you see me confused or anything, please step in and help me get those words out because we kind of aren't the best communicators. And lastly, take some time to connect. Being a part of a team, we love relationships. We value that personal relationship. It'll actually help us do our job better. I really value getting to know my team and just feeling that place of belonging and helping my team get that mission. Things I need to be careful about would be being open to change. Like I say, once we're stuck to our basic routines, it's hard to get away from that. Change is kind of hard. So that's something that we should work on. And another thing is communicating openly. We might not always share the details. I know I don't for the sake of just because I'd like to keep it all to myself. And I'm a hoarder of details. So that's something else I need to work on. And decision making skills. We can be very indecisive. So we're so used to supporting our team that we don't really call the shots. We're just there for support. So that's another thing that I feel like Esses should work on, trying to call the shots and trying to make that decision and speaking up about things. And just practice being assertive because once again, that assertiveness, it makes us scared because of being S's. And I feel like that's something we could work on because we can be assertive people. We just have to try and practice. Now, my other character trait is actually C, and Monica's going to tell us more about that one.
cool.
Yes, I am. And C is for cautious. So basically, as someone who identifies as a C, I'm going to be that professional perfectionist. With that said, I need the details, all of the details up front. Be specific, even if it's a matter of evaluating. And that's going to benefit all of us in general, whether you are a employer or you are the employee. Once you identify what your type is, then that lets people know how to interact with you. and you to know how to interact with them. I don't do well either with those sudden changes. If I had 1, 2, 3, 4 and you throw a Z in there, I'm gonna lose it. I need that time, and especially if you know a change has occurred, please let me know, and as soon as possible, so I can digest that change and be more prepared to deal with it rather than just being thrown in there. I don't do well with the sink or swim. I want to plan, I want to stretch, I want to make sure I haven't eaten in 2 hours. I'm a planner, I got to follow those steps. So just kind of stick with the plan with me and give me the chance to sit back and weigh the pros and cons. I'm going to always weigh my pros and cons. If it's a matter of what I eat for lunch, hey, I know I got this webinar this afternoon. I'm not going to eat that fried chicken. I'm going to go with the salad so I can be upbeat and alert and ready to go and give you guys some good information. So that's how the C's identify. I always want to be informed. Even with my feedback, I want to be informed throughout the process, as detailed as possible. C's, we don't have a lot of flaws. We probably only have one flaw, and that's not being flexible. Again, just because it's already detailed out, I want to stick with that. It's, as they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So the bad side of that is I can come across as kind of strict or rigid, and that may make people kind of apprehensive to interact or engage just because you don't know how to read me. Kim has told me that since day one, since I've gotten here, I can't read you. I'm like, oh, better probably ask. That's going to be your best bet because you're not going to be able to read me. So those are just a few things you want to be mindful of when you're dealing with a C personality type.
What I love about all of the personalities types is that we're all unique. And whatever our areas of enrichment are, it's another personality strengths. So it's really unique to watch all of the different personalities work together. I think that's what makes us so cohesive. So with that being said, did you guys know that your personality style can influence your conflict management strategy? What strategy you use? So Christy,
Oh, yeah.
what's your, do you as
Oh,
a
yes.
direct person kind of lean towards more one conflict style?
My direct side makes me a competing person when it comes to conflict, where it's, just do it. Okay. When it comes right down to it, no, let's not talk about this. Let's just make this happen. Because it's about that bottom line. And so that sometimes is one that my D personality traits will fall back on too often. And so I have to be very careful to try different ways of doing it, like the accommodating and all those other ones, so that people will still be willing to come to me and talk with me. Because otherwise, if every time they come to me, I just say, you do this, no talk, we'll do it, that's going to close down all communication. And they're not going to be willing to come to me anymore. So it's really important to me to use some of those other tools in the toolbox.
That's interesting because one of the conflict styles that I lean towards with it being inspiring is compromising. And that's because with eyes, we're so focused on that relationship and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We want to make sure that everybody involved gets a little something of what they want out of it. So I lean towards that compromising. I know, Nathan, right, for your S, what's the style you lean more towards?
I would say avoidance, because
Mhm.
we kind of just let it fizzle out on its own, out of sight, out of mind. It's avoidance. It works every time.
Mm. Yeah. Monica, what about you being cautious?
Well, as someone who's cautious, it's going to be more collaborating. I'm going to be that combination of assertive and cooperative. And that way, I'm going to work with others so everybody tries to and can get something out of the deal.
Mm. Now, it's important for you guys to remember that, even though that's your default, doesn't mean that's all the one that it'll solve all of the conflict problems. Remember, it depends on the situation and a lot of various factors. But this is the one that you kind of gravitate more based on your personality type.
Cody has a great comment about that in the chat, as a matter of fact. Did you see this? Our personality type is the default that we go to in conflict. Calmness and self-awareness help us to listen to the other person, identify what their personality type really is, and respond accordingly. And isn't that what we're
Exactly.
talking about? Thank you. Thank you, Cody. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Cody, you get to raise the roof on that one. That's awesome. So it's important for us to remember that people deal with conflict in a variety of ways. That's why it's really important that we have different conflict resolution strategies in our tool belt. So here's some of the list of strategies that we've identified. So our first conflict strategy is separate the people from the problem. And I believe, Christy, you have some tips on that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, my share. Let's see here. To separate the people from the problem. First of all, in this case, remember that the problem is over here and the people are on the other side. What we're trying to do is make it where it's not us against the other person. Instead, it's both of us against the problem. And if we focus it that way, where we're talking about the problem, well, then we actually get on the same side and we can start using that teamwork language. What can we do about this? How can we fix this? How can we make this better? Instead of going in there and saying, here's what you're doing that drives me crazy, here's what I'm seeing. Let's see what we can do about this. So trying to work with that. Taking a timeout is a great idea. And I'll take any suggestions y'all have in the chat for how you take a timeout. But just stepping back, because sometimes we're get to a stage where we cannot have a good discussion. And we need to know at that moment that this is a time I need to step back and then come back and discuss this. Focusing on the task, once again, helps keep you from making it where you're against a person. Instead, it's both of you trying to fix the problem and make the task work better. And managing your frustration. Yes, sometimes we go a little crazy, and sometimes we need to find ways to calm ourselves down, even if it's just breathing, whatever we need to do to make sure that it's not turning into a personality thing and it's not getting heated, that we pull it back and we try to cover this in a way where when we walk out of that room, we still have a relationship with that other person.
So what are some strategies that you guys do in order to manage your frustration? My panelist.
Or for me, my go-to catharsis is to write. It allows me to step back, but it also allows me to express whatever it is that I'm going through at that time, rather than keeping it bottled up, or as Christy taught me earlier today, gunny sacking it. So yeah, I can get it out. I can express myself through writing.
I think we do put in the chat, Casey. I do the same thing. I take a walk, a break, nature break, just to get away, clear my mind, and give myself time. I like that. Walk while listening to music.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, and meditation. That's a great one too.
Great combo.
Yeah, I have to have the sun. I take a walk as well. That's my strategy. I have to have the sun, some fresh air, and to remove that emotion. I see Eliana said she likes to breathe. I think that's one of your strategies, huh, Chris?
Absolutely. Just sometimes we forget that when we're in a stress situation, we breathe faster and shallow. If we stop, take 3 long, deep breaths, release it slowly, it makes you slow down and just start seeing that, okay, maybe things aren't as bad as I think they are.
Several people have shared different types of exercise in the chat, yoga, working out. I'm kind of in agreement with Tara. I love the power nap. Some people can't get down with them. It's like, that's not enough time. All it's going to do is make me more angry. But give me 15 minutes and I'm in heaven. It's perfect for me. I love it.
Well, you guys have some great strategies in there. So let's look at our next one. Our next strategy is to separate the interest from the positions.
Right. And so when you do that, it's kind of building on what Christy was talking about earlier, making it about the team. Don't make things about you or individuals. That's why you want to focus on the interest, as opposed to this is what I want to do. And so this is what we're going to do, rather than stopping and finding out why I want to do this, and then being willing to talk to you about why you want to do it the way you would like to do it. And that's how we find that common ground. And in that instance, we both get to be heard, we both get to feel understood, and that's going to help us be more constructive in that problem solving. So it's just going to make it that much more easier to come together to come up with a conclusion and that final decision rather than just making it on your own. No one wants to be voluntold what to do, especially when you didn't even get to put your name in the hat, get to give your opinion. Because we're not going to always get our way, but it at least makes us feel better for someone to show an interest in what we think and what we have to say, rather than just making decisions arbitrarily for us. So that's how you put the interest before the position.
I love that. And so with this strategy, now that we've located that common ground, now it's time for us to generate those options. Nathan, you have some tips for us on that?
Yes, for generating options, brainstorm options to solve the problem. These options can lead to more solutions. A lot of times whenever we're brainstorming, we don't always have an open mind. So try to be open to all decisions and all ideas that you have. There's no such thing as a silly idea when you're brainstorming. I'm a recent graduate of the Pro Trainer program, and one of my colleagues, Miss Shirley Mahmood, told me about a game called Jot Thoughts. And basically, Jot Thoughts is you give yourself time, like a minute or so, and write down the first idea that comes to your mind to whatever it is that you're brainstorming. And at the end of your minute, you'll have all of these ideas. You take the time and sort out those ideas, and you can potentially come up with the solution. It's better with more people, of course, and you could come up with the best solution for your problem. If anybody has any apps or applications or websites for mind mapping, please share it in the comments. Okay.
Oh,
Did some homework.
yes.
I was looking like,
Jot Thoughts is one of my favorites.
I
Yeah.
love that.
yeah, that was an awesome idea when she introduced us to that. I've used it several times since then.
It's definitely, and keeping in mind that, no idea is a bad idea. You can always use bits and pieces of the different ones. I see Jennifer put Padlet.
Cool.
Oh, never heard of that one. I'm going to have to look that up. Okay, thank you, Nathan. So once you brainstorm those possible solutions, now it's time for you to establish those objectives.
So back to establishing those objectives, like I always say, you want to make sure that you be specific. So set the expectation. Then ask each and all parties involved for their suggestions and show your willingness that you do care about what their interests are and promote that mutual respect amongst your team. You want to actually give it serious consideration. Again, it's only going to be one final solution, but the fact that you took the time and showed that interest, that's going to build that more trust between you and your team members. And lastly, just gather all of those ideas, share it back out with the group, and let them provide feedback. Weigh in on what they would like the choice to be. And then now you've come together, as Christy said, and collectively made the decision of what you guys are going to be doing rather than one person just deciding all on their own. Everyone's voice gets to be heard.
Yeah. I mean, these are some pretty good strategies. I think, what I've learned so far is to make sure that I have that technique, make sure that, we jot down those options. Everybody has a common ground. But one of the things that I do struggle with, and I'm going to be vulnerable right now, is how to communicate effectively during, when I have to talk to someone else involving that conflict. Christy, do you have any strategies for us and how to communicate effectively?
You know I do. Because, okay, my challenge is assertiveness. People assume because I'm loud, I'm assertive, but I'm not. I need help on that. And the iMessage model is one of those tools that I use that really helps me because I'm not assertive. Now, what it does is it helps remove some of the emotion from the discussion. And so people hear me talk about this all the time because it's something that I fall back on a lot. It helps me. It also helps me because you know how when you're planning a discussion, you need to be able to think through what's really important. What are the things you need to talk about? This helps me organize my thoughts that way. So the iMessage model, and it'll be in the handouts, by the way, starts off with when you, and it describes the situation without adjectives, without anger, without anything. It's just, here's the situation. So when you do the such and such, I feel, and okay, some people say, no, that means you're bringing a feeling in. Okay, no, actually what it's talking about is what you see. It's the result that comes from it. So I feel like this happens, or I see this happening, or I notice this happens. It's whatever you see as the result of the when you, all right? We got that so far? All right. This is important because is the next thing we say. This is the reason you're having the discussion. It's what's happening up there is a problem in some way, and this is what it is and why it's causing a challenge. And so the I would like, this is so important because in so many conflict situations, we never say the actual change we'd like to see. We get all angry, we say, I hate the way it is, but we never say what we would like to be the solution to this. So I would like is where you're offering one of your solutions, or at least offering some choices. And then we turn it back over to the other person with a question so that they get a chance to talk. Because you know, especially if you're having this with an I, that if you go too long without letting them talk, they're just sitting over there about to explode. So you got to give them time to talk. So, okay, practice. Here's how it works. Say, I am a supervisor. I got my team with me. A manager comes in and yells at me in front of my team, chews me out for something. And oh my gosh, I'm angry, right? So I'm going to use a when you statement, but I can't get emotion in there, right? So I'm going to give you 3 choices. All right, y'all, on the chat, write in which letter you would go for. Which of these is the right response for a when you that removes the emotion? A, when you chew me out in front of my team. Okay. B, when you correct me in front of my team. Or C, when you yell like a banshee at me when I'm talking to my team. Okay, so A, B, or C. Oh, thank you. I was so scared. I was so scared somebody was going to put a C in there. Okay, that's exactly. So Lacey, of course, put a C.
Of course, Lacey.
Always one in the
Of
group. So what you're trying to do when you do the when you're trying to remove all emotion, all those adjectives, all those things. You know, you're trying to get rid of feelings and just make it the situation. So when you correct me in front of my team, okay, I see or I notice what happens with my team. Anybody throw something at me? What happens? What do they do? What do you think happens?
Lose respect for you, or
Oh, excellent. I notice my team loses respect for me. Okay, when you correct me in front of my team, I notice they lose respect for me. Well, why is that a problem?
You're their boss.
And as a boss, what do I have to do?
Be respected by them.
because it can
Yes.
You can lose the cohesiveness,
Yes.
of your team.
Yeah.
Yes. I
It has
still
some really great things in the chat. They say
Yeah.
it's going to affect your credibility,
Yes.
question your authority,
you go.
morale is going to go down, all of those things.
Exactly. So I could take just one of these ideas and be able to say, like y'all do, this is important because I still have to lead them, you know?
Mhm.
So, okay, what would I like? I want to see some answers in the chat. What would I like for my boss to do differently? What would make this okay for me? What am I asking for? When you, there you go. Pull me to one side, talk to me privately, closed door meeting, private meeting, communicate one-on-one. You've got it. That's exactly what we're talking about. If I do that and then get down to my last statement and say, could we try this? Or what do you think? Tell me that that's not a conversation that works through the emotion and gets to the point. When you correct me in front of my employees, I feel like they lose respect for me. And this is important because I still have to direct them every day. I'd really like if we could have these discussions in private. Do you think we could try that? Have I just given you something that you really would be comfortable with as far as a discussion? I hope so. And I really love what Francine just brought up.
Yeah,
Praise in public, correct in private. Thank you very
nail
much.
on the head with that one.
Yes.
Absolutely. Amen. So that's why I like the iMessage model. It helps me to get that anger out of me and get it down to just what I need to say to somebody. And I think with conflict communication, it's so important that we find a way to get past that emotion and get to a nice conversation where we can talk through things. I know that at first we have to kind of vent some of the stuff out. We have to get that out at the first. I understand that. But when we start to try to get to a real solution, the iMessage model is going to help us a whole lot.
Mm. What I really love about the iMessage, and I've just learned about the iMessage when I started with State Civil Service, it's that it gives important information quickly, clearly, and in a way that encourages that other person to help you find a solution. And it removes it from being so accusatory, like you did this, you did that, in an attacking manner. You know, I just love that it removes all of that. And so I find, just me personally, with that iMessage, it's something. Am I an iMessage guru? No. I do find that I try and practice it, as much as I can, and I find that we're able to move positively once I use it. And I also like the fact that you said you changed it from, or not changed it, but you can change it from I feel to I see. Just because with me, I I don't like saying the I feel part, because when I think of feel, I think of me saying how I'm feeling.
Yes. Yes. I know what you mean. And that's a lot of people have said that. And I always felt funny saying, I feel, but we're not talking feelings. So yeah, I kind of understood that. And that's why I said, yeah, we could say I see, or I noticed, or, I observed, or whatever, just showing the result of the when you, whatever happens in the when you. Really is a cool tool. And I really enjoy using that one.
Definitely. And iMessage is one of those best practices, that'll help us move that conflict in a positive manner. It's important for us to remember that, conflict is inevitable. Even in the most cohesive team, it happens. Sometimes, well, conflict has such a negative connotation associated with that word. And it's not always negative. It's a growing opportunity. You are definitely enhancing those competencies, problem solving, communication skills. It's a growth opportunity for you. So well managed conflict can be an asset to your team. It's not an obstacle. So does anyone have any best practices they'd like to share? Ooh, I love that. Diana Bennett said conflict gives wisdom. Mm.
Some real good stuff in the chat today.
Right.
Conflict
Wisdom and
enables
actually.
growth.
Yeah.
I feel, and another wording for that is I sense.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, there's some good stuff in there.
So what are some best practices that my attendees and the panelists that you'd like to share?
I just think time heals all wounds. So time, especially with that avoidance and S, sometimes you can give yourself time and go back to revisit the situation, and you're like, that's so small. Why was that such a big thing? Time is your best friend. Give it time.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I've found that works that's really fun in the classes that we've talked about is to stop and say, why might this person be reacting this way? Why might they be angry? It's really interesting to be able to do that, because it makes you stop and say, no, not the first ones, they're being a jerk, or they're just mean, or just, no. Instead, say, really, why might they be saying this? Maybe it's an area they're defensive about. Maybe it's something they're uncomfortable with. Maybe they're having a really bad day. We have those nowadays a lot. Maybe they're confused. They don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to ask for help or something. So stopping and really asking why. Think of as many reasons as you can why they might be thinking that way or acting that way, and all of a sudden you're kind of open to looking for the answer to that as you talk to them.
Mm-hmm. What I love about one of the best practices that you shared, Christy, is putting yourself in that other person's shoes. And I have to give a kudos to Julie Miller because she's really good at making me see the other person's perspective. And I find that if you look at the other person's perspective, sometimes, you know, it's not as a big of a conflict as you thought it was. Sometimes you just, well, I can't say everybody. Now, I know in my mind, sometimes I create stuff that's not there. And so, it's important for you to put yourself in that other person's shoes, and you'll oftentimes see that the conflict is not as big as you thought it would be.
Mhm. And interesting that Julie had a good comment in there about thinking if it matters, will it matter a week from now, a year from now, a month from now? Stop it. Basically doing the fast forward on the remote control.
Yes.
One year from now, is this conversation going to matter at all? Chances are no.
No.
Start letting it go now.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just gonna be the C that I was born to be. I love the I messages because it's detailed. It gives me a plan. It helps me collect my thoughts and gather together exactly what I want to say beforehand, and it makes sure that all of the important points are covered. And it gives me that ability to again work collaboratively with whomever I'm having the conflict with, and to resolve it in the most positive manner. Stepping back, and that time while I'm writing that out, that helps me take away those unnecessary negative emotions, that anger or that frustration. If I would have responded in the moment, probably would have been a very different ending. So that's why I love that I get to take that time, sit down, gather my thoughts, write it out, and it works well for me.
Mm,
That's good.
yeah.
Yep.
We have Carolyn in chat. She said, if I get an employee that comes to me with any problem or conflict, I always ask them if they have two solutions to that problem. Sometimes if a problem is with another employee, this approach helps because it tends to get to the root. It gets the one who is complaining to at least voice what they are seeking in a solution. It definitely opens up the conversation towards solutions.
Love that.
Love that.
Mhm.
And I love the fact that she asked for two solutions, because
Mhm.
if they come in with just one, they're going to be like, here's my answer to it. And
Exactly.
they're not going to be flexible. But if you come in with two, you're already building in some flexibility there. So that's a great idea, Carolyn.
Mhm.
It is.
I tell you what, we have some best practices, some great best practices, and now we're almost at the end of our webinar. But
Oh,
before we conclude the ABCs of conflict, does anyone on the panel have any closing remarks about this topic?
I would like to say that practice makes perfect. We gave you tools. There's different tools for different situations. Just use them, and practice makes perfect. Practice.
Mhm. I love that, Nathan, because I tell you what, I'm definitely a work in progress. I have the strategies to remove that frustration. I have that down pat. It's that I message that are coming across and removing that emotion that I'm constantly working and practicing with, because I want to make sure, because I'm an I don't like to hurt feelings. And so I want to make sure that I'm moving that conversation in a positive direction.
Mhm.
And for me, I think it's just a commitment that I made to myself, just with trying to be a positive person. It kind of, I don't like when people are so quick to state the problem, but don't come with a solution. So I love the idea of being part of the solution and not always just stating the problem. So when you come into it with that attitude, come into it on a positive note, it's just going to make it that more likely to be successful and end with a good result as well. So be a part of the solution. Don't be a part of the problem.
Mm.
such great comments that I couldn't even top. Everybody is saying things like, we're all a work in progress.
Yes.
And I tell you, that's exactly what I think is the most important thing to realize, is that we are all learning how to handle conflict and all communication every single day. And if we take just a little time to stop, use some of the tools we talked about today, stop and say, what personality type might I be dealing with? Or what might be the problem here? Or even, am I automatically going to my competing method, or am I automatically accommodating so much that nobody ever gets my ideas? Just making sure we're not overusing one style of conflict resolution so that we continue to grow. I think it'll make us all stronger, and little by little, we'll make our little corners better, and hopefully it spreads.
Mm-hmm. Stacy
Right,
said
Kendra actually said iron sharpens iron, and I definitely believe that.
Mhm.
Nice.
That's
I can't do anything with a wet noodle. It's not gonna work. I need somebody up to my standard. Yeah, I love it.
Stacy also had a great comment. She said, practice with the small stuff so when the big one hits, you're more comfortable. I like that one.
I think that's a
I like
great
Cody's
idea.
too, that every day is a new opportunity to grow and learn. I also I have my little affirmations that I say to myself when certain things are going on, and it's turning that obstacle, conflict, into an opportunity. Let it be something that you grow from, something that makes you better, that makes you stronger, that you got to the other side of it successfully.
Mhm. One more comment. John Dean said, don't forget that after any of these conversations, you'll need to follow up.
Definitely.
Yes.
Big one.
That
Great point.
Great one to
Yes.
tie it all together.
great one to tie it all together. So this concludes our ABCs of conflict, you guys. I tell you what, I can't believe we're almost at the end. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, it does.
I have some great news for you guys. Even though we're ending this series, that's okay. You'll be able to view this. The handouts that you guys been getting for the other series, we're going to include one with the iMessage for you guys that we use today. And the good thing about it is that you'll learn more about our conflict resolution classes, that we have a web-based course as well as a classroom session. And you get a bonus. One of us will be facilitating it. You're welcome. You guys are welcome.
She just sneaked a commercial in there on you in case you didn't notice.
So you guys can find these handouts on our talent development page under Success Series webinar. You're going to click and it brings up all the handouts from all the webinars that we have done. So it doesn't just stop here, you guys. You have all the resources possible. You can also check out this recording on our YouTube page, as well as other past webinars on our YouTube page, just by searching Louisiana State Civil Service. And if you don't have access to YouTube, that's okay. We have you covered, all right? You can go ahead and search for these webinars on our wonderful Leo. You can find these webinars by just in the search field, typing webinar. And just in case you don't have access to YouTube. So we got you covered everywhere. You can never get rid of us. So just to let you guys know that we're going to take a little break for the rest of the holidays, but don't worry, we got you covered. We'll be back for a new series. And this new series is just as exciting as the last one. We're going to talk about the 3 C's of change. With everything that is going on, I know I need a few tips in this area to help me get through things. So we got you covered on the 3 C's of change. Be on the lookout for more information. So thank you guys for joining us today. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you, my lovely panelists, for sharing your ideas and your tips. I just want to say happy holidays to everyone.
Happy holidays.
Please be safe. And before we let you go, always remember to keep on learning.
Learning.
Bye.
Hey, everybody.
Bye, you guys. It was great.